When I decided to make a video on endodontic access to a maxillary molar, I made sure that the pulp chamber was somewhat calcified to better relate to the problems that dentists may incur when initiating this procedure. As you can see from the x-rays, the pulp chamber is quite atrophied. I make my initial occlusal access with a number 4 high-speed surgical length round burr. As long as the occlusal surface is not worn down, I know that I can seek a depth of 7 millimeters, enough to get me into the heart of the pulp chamber, but still 3 millimeters away from perforating the floor of the chamber. 7 millimeters is an easy mark to line up with a cusp tip because it is precisely at the point on the shank of the burr where the taper turns parallel. As long as little attrition is present on the occlusal surface, the transition point on the shank of the high-speed number 4 round burr can be used as a marker for the correct depth. As the burr continues deeper, I am looking for penetration of the roof of the pulp chamber. Once I pierce the roof, my next goal is to remove the rest of the chamber's roof. I do this by placing the round burr under the height of contour and pulling up. I do this with a light pull-up stroke because I don't want to gouge deeply into the side walls of the chamber, removing excess dentin in the process. In this manner, I create an access opening that is fairly conservative, yet gives me access to the orifices branching from the chamber floor. Once I can clearly see all aspects of the floor, I am ready to explore more deeply to make sure all the canals are found. I make sure I have patency in the palatal canal, generally the easiest one to find, and negotiate apically. I note what appears to be some relatively deep grooving along a buccolingual plane, starting in the mesiobuccal portion of the pulp chamber. Of course, I am suspecting not only an MB1, but possibly an MB2. I use a number 1 Muntz burr, a long shank slow-speed tool steel round burr, to remove dentin in the depth of the groove, as well as some lateral dentin to widen my view. I then use an explorer to check for any catches along the length of this newly troughed space. I then attempt to negotiate these catches with an 08 reamer. The mesiobuccal canal readily opens up when the 08 reamer is placed using a watch-winding motion. A little bit mesially and lingually from the MB1, I find an MB2 that is probable with the 08 reamer, and then find an additional pathway further lingually that is yet another entry point. After some initial shaping with the 08 reamer, you can clearly see the entry points for both MB2 and MB3, with the MB tucked a bit under the buccal cusp. I still felt that MB2 and MB3 were somewhat obscured by the dentin, and chose to go back with the Muntz burr to relieve a bit more of the overlying dentin. The result was still clearer access to both MB2 and MB3. Once my access is clearly established, I have no qualms about taking the same 08 instrument and the subsequent reamers, both relieved and unrelieved, and using them in the 30-degree reciprocating handpiece at approximately 3,000 to 4,000 cycles per minute. Either manually or engine-driven, I now shape the canals to a 20 and follow that with straightening of the coronal curves using the tapered piezo or pleaser. Even prior to the use of the tapered piezo, enlarging MB1 and MB2 resulted in the loss of the septum separating them, and they became one canal. After coronal shaping with the tapered piezo, the canals are clearly visible. I then take my last instrument prior to the piezos and take it apically, making sure my patency remains intact. This video is an attempt to show you how to attain proper access and subsequently find the canals in an organized, safe manner. The relief reamers, used both manually and in the reciprocating handpiece, give the dentist the ability to negotiate to the apex and widen the canals with far less resistance than K-files, and far more safely and completely than had been possible using any of the rotary NiTi systems. This video concentrated on the mesiobuccal access to all the canals present. The distal buccal and palatal generally do not present major challenges.